ever imagine stumbling upon like this dusty old rock and it just unlocks secrets to like a lost civilization? That's basically what happened in 1799 with the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
We're about to take a deep dive into the story of this like legendary artifact. I got a stack of lecture notes here and they're like blowing my mind.
It's not even just the story itself, right?
Yeah.
It's the ripple effects. This one discovery in 1799 fundamentally changed how we understand ancient Egypt, its place in history.
Okay, so to set the scene, it's 1799 and Napoleon's army is sweeping through Egypt. Now, you might think this is just another military conquest, but here's where it gets really cool.
Okay.
Napoleon, he didn't just bring soldiers, right? He brought scholars, too.
Yeah, it was an intellectual invasion as much as a military one. I mean, Europe was in the throes of Egyptomania, obsessed with, like, everything about this ancient culture. Pyramids, mummies, hieroglyphics, you name it, it was all the rage.
So picture this. A French officer, Pierre-François Bouchard. Now, he's supervising the construction of Fort Julien near the Nile River. He's overseeing, like, the demolition of an old wall, and bam! He uncovers this big black slab of granite.
Wow.
Now,
I can only imagine.
I know, most people would probably just say a rock, but Bouchard, he's working alongside all these scholars who are, like, hungry for any scrap of ancient history.
Yeah.
They take one look at this stone covered in inscriptions and realize this is something special.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be important if it has writing on it, right?
Yeah. And boy, were they right. This stone had the same text carved on it 3 times, but in 3 different writing systems. You've got hieroglyphics, those elaborate picture symbols the Egyptians used. Then there's Demotic, a kind of cursive script for everyday writing.
Right.
And finally, good old ancient Greek, the language of scholarship and administration.
Yeah, and it's important to remember, at this time, no one alive could read hieroglyphics. Like, they were completely baffled by these intricate symbols, but Greek was the key. They knew if they could unlock the meaning of the Greek text, it would be like having like a translation guide to decipher the other 2.
Imagine being a scholar staring at that stone, knowing you might hold the key to a civilization's secrets.
Yeah.
It must have been exhilarating.
Totally.
But before we get to the code breaking, let's talk about what this stone actually says.
Well, it wasn't like some thrilling novel. It's more like, ancient Egyptian bureaucracy.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it turns out it's a decree issued by King Ptolemy V in 96 BC.
Okay.
The "I'm the king, hear me roar" kind of thing.
Yeah, let me guess. Tax cuts and free chariots for everyone.
Not quite. It basically lists his accomplishments, praises the priests, and lays out some decrees, standard kingly stuff.
Right.
But here's the thing. Each script was aimed at a different segment of Egyptian society.
Oh,
The elites who understood Greek, the officials who used Demotic, and then the hieroglyphs. Those were primarily for display and religious contexts.
So even back then, it was all about, like, controlling the message, hitting those different demographics.
Absolutely. This multilingual approach tells us a lot about Ptolemy V's reign.
Yeah.
He was trying to, consolidate power, legitimize his rule, and what better way than by communicating with all levels of society, right?
Yes.
This wasn't just a message. This was a power play carved in stone.
Okay, but enough about ancient PR campaigns. Let's get back to the real star. The stone itself. So how does a rock pulled from a muddy ditch in Egypt end up as like a prized exhibit in the British Museum?
That's where things get even more interesting. Remember, this is 1799. Napoleon's France and Britain. They were locked in this pretty intense rivalry, always vying for control, especially in places like Egypt.
Right.
Strategically vital for trade routes to the east.
So basically, finders, keepers, losers, weepers.
Pretty much. When the British defeated the French in Egypt in 1801, they seized the Rosetta Stone as a spoil of war.
Wow.
Along with a lot of other artifacts.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was shipped off to London, and by 1802, it was on display in the British Museum, where it's remained ever since, attracting millions of visitors. Fascinated by its story and what it unlocked.
Okay, so the stone is in London. Scholars have their hands on copies of these inscriptions. Now for the real challenge, cracking the code.
Yeah.
I bet there were some, epic academic throwdowns back in the day.
Oh, absolutely. It was a race to unlock the secrets of hieroglyphs, a linguistic puzzle that had stumped the greatest minds for centuries. Enter our first contender, a British polymath, Thomas Young.
Okay.
He was a physician, physicist, and linguist.
A regular Renaissance man.
Talk about overachieving, right?
Wow! So what was his contribution to the Rosetta Stone saga?
Young was brilliant. He focused on the names of kings and queens,
Okay.
figuring those would be the most consistent across languages. He realized that a group of hieroglyphs circled on the stone, a cartouche, actually spelled out Ptolemy, phonetically.
Wait, so some of those hieroglyphs weren't pictures for whole words, they actually represented sounds?
Exactly. That was Jung's breakthrough. It was revolutionary because up until that point, everyone assumed hieroglyphics were purely symbolic, like
Yeah.
little emoji for ideas.
Yeah.
Jung realized that some of them, especially those spelling foreign names, were phonetic, representing individual sounds, just like the letters in our alphabet. He even identified a few of these phonetic hieroglyphs correctly.
That's huge. He basically figured out the vowels and consonants of the hieroglyphic system.
He laid the groundwork, but fully deciphering the entire system. That triumph belongs to our next historical hero, Jean-François Champollion.
Champollion, the name has a certain, ring to it, doesn't it?
It does.
Like he was, destined to crack the code of ancient Egypt.
Right.
What was it about him that made the difference?
Well, Champollion, he was practically obsessed with Egypt since childhood.
Yeah.
But beyond passion, he had this incredible grasp of languages,
Okay.
both ancient and modern, right?
Right.
And he built on Jung's work with phonetic hieroglyphs, but took it so much further,
Oh.
He recognized that the writing system was this complex mix of phonetic and symbolic elements.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of like how we use emojis today. Sometimes they stand for a whole word, sometimes just a feeling.
So it wasn't just about sounding out the words. You had to understand, the Egyptian mindset?
Exactly. And that's where Champollion's genius, really shines. He immersed himself in, everything Egyptian, language, history, religion. He realized that the same hieroglyph could represent a sound, an idea, or even a grammatical element, depending on the context.
Wow.
It was like cracking this complex code where the rules kept changing.
So after, years of coiling away, deciphering ancient shopping lists and tax returns, when did that aha moment finally hit for Champollion?
So legend has it, in 1822, while studying a newly translated inscription, he suddenly just, saw the connections.
Wow.
The patterns in the hieroglyphs just clicked.
Cool.
He supposedly jumped up, ran through the streets of Paris shouting, "I've got it, I've got it," before collapsing from, sheer excitement.
Now that's what I call dedication.
Right.
But seriously, can you imagine the thrill of being the first person in centuries to, truly understand what those ancient Egyptians were saying?
Oh, I can't even begin to imagine.
It must have been a whole world just, bursting open.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about deciphering a language. It was about giving a voice to a civilization that had been silent for millennia. Suddenly, we could read their stories, understand their beliefs, their hopes, their dreams. It completely transformed our view of ancient Egypt and its place in history.
It's like going from seeing, those amazing pyramids and temples as just, these silent monuments to actually hearing the stories behind them. The people who built them, the pharaohs who, ruled from within their walls.
Precisely. And it wasn't just about ancient history either. Champollion's breakthrough, had ripple effects on other fields too.
Really?
Archaeology was never the same again. Imagine, digging up a tomb full of hieroglyphics and actually being able to read what they say.
You're right. It's like archaeology went from black and white to full color.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing this whole Rosetta Stone saga sparked, a renewed fascination with ancient Egypt, right?
It was Egyptomania on steroids. Suddenly, everyone wanted to be an explorer, an archaeologist, an adventurer, uncovering the secrets of the pyramids. This led to more expeditions, more discoveries, and a deeper appreciation for ancient cultures in general.
So cool. Okay, but we can't ignore the elephant, or should I say, the ancient artifact in the room. The Rosetta Stone itself is still sitting in the British Museum, right? Didn't anyone ever think to return it to Egypt?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The Rosetta Stone's journey from a dusty construction site to a museum pedestal, it raises some really thorny questions about cultural heritage, ownership, and, who gets to decide where these artifacts belong.
Yeah, and to think, it all started with a rock,
Right.
a few scribbles on a stone, and a whole lot of curiosity.
Exactly.
So where does that leave us?
It leaves us with more to discover. While the Rosetta Stone provided that key to understanding hieroglyphics, there are still countless texts and inscriptions out there just waiting to be deciphered.
Wow.
We're still piecing together the puzzle, uncovering new layers of meaning and refining our understanding of this incredible civilization.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
And the Rosetta Stone is that, first crucial step on a path of, endless exploration and discovery.
Precisely. It's a reminder that the past is never truly gone. It's waiting for us to uncover its secrets, piece by piece, inscription by inscription.
And on that note, I think we've earned ourselves a trip to the museum, maybe brush up on our hieroglyphics.
Right.
You never know, we might stumble upon the next Rosetta Stone tucked away in some dusty corner.
Hmm.
Until then, keep those thinking caps on and never underestimate the power of a single discovery to unlock the mysteries of the past.